Hello, I'm Martha Van Dam, and this is Living Beyond. I have a story for you right now. I will do this as quickly as possible that could potentially save a life. I believe that because I had heard this story a lot of years ago, it actually saved my life. And that is this: there is a type of breast cancer that does not show up with a lump. Since it does not show up with a lump, it is very often misdiagnosed. It is very often unrecognized until it it has gone someplace else, has metastasized, and is a stage 4 cancer. If we know what to look for, we are so much safer, in so much of a better position. So this type of breast cancer is called inflammatory breast cancer. And the reason it's called inflammatory breast cancer is because the breast actually becomes inflamed. The tissue, the skin becomes inflamed. With inflammatory breast cancer, since the cancer isn't residing in this tight little lump, it kind of becomes diffused through the tissue of the breast and especially in the skin. It gets into the lymph system of the breast, and what you will see is changes in what the breast looks like. One of the most common changes is a pinkness. The skin on the breast becomes pink. When I discovered it on myself, it looked like I'd been out in the sun for a little while on the underside of my breast. Well, for that to happen, I would have had to have been upside down and naked. And I can promise you with complete assurance that never happened. So for me, it simply showed up as this pinkness. What you need to know is that and this is also makes it a little confusing for people, is there's a whole gamut of different types of symptoms that'll show up for women, ways that'll show up in the breast. So I'll list off the ones that come to my head pretty quickly. So there's redness, there's swelling, itching, burning, something that may look like a bruise. The nipple can become inverted. There can be oozing of some sort of oozing. Those are the ones that come to my mind right now. So the point is, very often this type of breast cancer hits younger women during their childbearing years. And it often can be connected to pregnancy because, of course, during pregnancy, the hormones are going up and down. And very often this cancer, not always, but very often this cancer is fed by estrogen or progesterone. So the extra hormones with pregnancy, if that cancer is going to develop, those hormones then can feed it. So women who are pregnant or nursing, well, particularly women who've been nursing or are nursing, they may develop this type of cancer, and they go to their doctor, and if the doctor is not well trained to recognize it, very often it's misdiagnosed as mastitis. The woman is given a couple of rounds of antibiotics. Naturally, it doesn't get well because antibiotics don't cure cancer, but the woman is given the antibiotics, sent on her way, and all the while the cancer is continuing to grow. The message in this is, if you see something different about your breast, something that changes that is not normal, do not just assume my bra must be too tight. The fabric might be rubbing. Maybe I've gotten a bug bite. Do not just assume, or if you do want to give it a little bit of time, give it a very little bit of time. As in, if this isn't better in 2 days, then I'm getting it checked out. My story is that on a Friday morning, I was getting dressed and I looked down and I saw this pinkness coming from the underside of one breast. And I didn't think much about it. And then went ahead and got dressed about my day. Nothing felt different. And it really was just a little pink. If you saw a picture, you'd be amazed that was the extent of it. That evening, when I got undressed to get ready for bed, the pink was still there. And then it struck me, oh my word, I've heard of a type of breast cancer. This is what I mean. I'd heard the story. Had heard of a type of breast cancer that showed up like a rash. And so then I started worrying, what if this isn't just, what is this pinkness? Naturally, Friday evening, I couldn't get in touch with my doctor. So I called her first thing Monday morning. And of course, over the course of the weekend, I had gone online. I had read Dr. Google, and now I knew that this was concerning. What I was seeing was very concerning. And so I called her first thing and said, I'm afraid I might have inflammatory breast cancer. Could you please schedule me for some testing? We did. We sent me straight to, within days, I was having a mammogram and ultrasound. Another thing you need to know about inflammatory breast cancer is that it very rarely shows up in mammograms. So as I went in and had the mammogram and it showed up clear, where other people might be excited about that, I actually knew that that meant that that was a scary thing, that for me to have a clear mammogram while I was having these symptoms was actually a symptom of inflammatory breast cancer. So then we went straight to having the ultrasound. In the ultrasound, they found a lump up under the arm in the lymph node, which was where the cancer had metastasized to. Important other note, inflammatory breast cancer is not recognizable at stage 1 or 2. So you really, really hope you can find it at stage 3. If you find it at stage 4, then it's already spread to a more distant part of the body. I was very grateful that we found this cancer at stage 3B. So when they figure out that this may be inflammatory, which is what it was looking like, they send you immediately to have surgical biopsies, and an MRI. The MRI showed questionable areas. The surgical biopsies clarified that we were dealing with a malignancy. And the treatment, the fun begins, the treatment starts. I'll go into that later, but what I want you to know today is the symptoms of this type of cancer. If you are a woman, if you know or love a woman, and here's a fun part, if you are a man, this matters to you because men also can get inflammatory breast cancer. The numbers are that the average risk for any woman to get any form of breast cancer in her life is 1 in 8. So it's about a 12.5% chance over the lifetime of developing breast cancer. Of those people, only about 5% of those cancers end up being inflammatory breast cancer. But I did a little math before I got on here, so don't hold me to this and don't sue me if I'm wrong. But with a population of about 7.5 billion people in the world, half of which are women, the math tells me that about 25 million people, just women, 25 million women in the world will be diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer. Now, when you hear 5% of all breast cancers and 12.5% of all women for all breast cancers, it sounds like a fairly small number. But when you hear 25 million people who are alive now, then that number's not so small. And also in my little area, I know of 4 other women who've had this specific type of cancer. It is generally termed as a rare cancer, but an awful lot of people believe it's not as much rare as it is orphaned. Since it's not as common, it doesn't demand quite the research dollars. Therefore, it also doesn't get the awareness dollars. And since it doesn't have its own ICD-10 code, and this is a real big point, then it's a little more difficult to track. If you or I get strep throat, a diagnosis code for strep throat gets put in our records. Then if someone with the CDC or any place doing research wants to figure out how many people in a certain area have had strep throat, they plug in that number and they can pretty quickly know exactly how many people have been diagnosed in a given area at a certain time with strep throat. There is no ICD-10 code for inflammatory breast cancer. A woman with inflammatory breast cancer is given a diagnosis code for general breast cancer, and then written later in her records, you'll see that there's a clinical finding that this particular cancer was inflammatory. That means that the ability to track and actually have accurate numbers for how many there are it's not good because there is not a clear tracking number. So I don't believe it's as rare as we might like to think. I believe that other than rare, we want to call it orphaned. I would like to see research dollars going into inflammatory breast cancer. But as much as that, I would like to see awareness made. Women need to know if you are a woman or if you love a woman or if you are a man. So I think we're all in that category. Please learn about inflammatory breast cancer. It could save your life. It could save the life of someone you love. I'll talk more about the story in weeks to come. Hope you guys have a fabulous, fabulous day. Bye-bye.